President Bola Tinubu has approved the immediate dissolution of the governing boards of all federal government parastatals, agencies, institutions, and government-owned companies in the exercise of its constitutional powers and in the public interest. The dissolution does not affect boards, commissions, and councils listed in the third schedule, Part 1, Section 153 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as amended. In view of this development, the chief executive officers of the parastatals, agencies, institutions, and government-owned companies are directed to refer matters requiring the attention of their boards to the president through the permanent secretaries of their respective supervisory ministries and offices. And joining me on the news to discuss the removal of service chiefs and others is the TVC defense correspondent, Sifon Essien. Also joining me is a former director, Army Public Relations, Brigadier General Sani Usman, retired. Good to have you, Brigadier, for joining us. But let's start with our defense correspondent, Sifon. Sifon, tell us, you have been covering defense for years, and you've seen the removal and appointments of service chiefs over and over again. But talk to us about the implication of these particular appointments.
It's a tradition when the leadership of the country changes, that the commander-in-chief would appoint his lieutenants, and in this case, the chief of defense staff and the other service chiefs, the acting inspector general of police, and, well, for the service chiefs who are now former military officers, because shortly they will be retiring or pulled out of service, they saw this coming. It's a tradition, time-honored tradition, so it's not a surprise. Now they are giving or paving the way for the new kids on the block, I may use that expression, talking about the new service chiefs, to assume office and bring to bear their expertise, their training, and as well as also ensuring the progression, career progression within the military. In other words, they're going to be moving to the next rank, paving the way for others under them to also climb to the next rank, allowing for that progression within the service. So time and again, we've covered appointments like this, and in the days to come, when they eventually assume office, they will now roll out their mandate, by way of vision for which they are, launching out to achieve.
But Sifon, talk to us, as a defense correspondent, which of these appointments came as a surprise to you?
Well, none of them came as a surprise to us. I haven't covered the military for a while now. None of them came as a surprise. And the quality of officers as chosen by the commander-in-chief is premium, the best of the best, you could say. Although many would say no one is perfect, but of course, looking at their CVs, they come with, lots of qualification for that role.
Thank you, Sifon, for your for sharing that update with us. All right, we're staying on this particular story. Let's now bring in a former director, Army Public Relations, Brigadier General Sani Usman, retired. Good to have you join us, Brigadier. So let me ask you if you think that the president is on track with these new appointments.
Well, I think Sifon, your defense correspondent, has said it all. The changes were not a surprise. And I must say that he's on track, given the quality of the various senior officers that have been appointed to right from the Chief of Defense Staff up to the Inspector General of Police, as well as Chief of Defense Intelligence, including the Custom and SSIs, because these are people that personally I have known them before. Beyond this issue, they had been in the system and for many years, and they have held several appointments cutting across command, staff, and instructional, which is very, very important, because they can be able to navigate the issue of operation, the issue of logistics, as well as welfare of the officers and men placed under them. And of course, is more or less like consolidation on the security, the counter-insurgency and other, operational activities, dealing with the security challenges, because they have held several, appointments in that sector. You look at individually, the chief of the new acting chief of defense staff had been even a theater commander, and before his appointment, he was the infantry corps commander, which is number one corps in the military. I mean, in the army. And of course, looking at the new chief of army staff, he had been a general officer commanding. In fact, he was also the commanding officer of the Special Forces Battalion, of course, Special Forces Brigade, and of course, general officer commanding 82 and 1 division, which is number one, or rather premier division in the army. And of course, the same thing with Air Vice, the Rear Admiral Ogala. He has held several appointments in the Navy, cutting across being a commanding of so many, and including strategic level, being an ex-boy himself. So, and of course, when you look at the new chief of army air staff, Air Vice Marshal Hassan, Abakar, he also had a great wealth of experience and knowledge. And of course, the new Inspector General of Police, Egbedo, and you look at even the Chief of Defense Intelligence, who had been in the intelligence corps all this while. Before his appointment, he is the commandant of peacekeeping, Martin Luther Agwai Peacekeeping and International Leadership Center in Jaji. Major General Parker, we used to call him because of his long name, Udindai, in fact. So, and of course, when you look at Adeni was the custom officer that was able to seized, over 8 point something million dollars, and of course he has a national honor. He had been the public relations officer of the custom. Before his appointment, he is the commandant of their command and staff college. So when you look at their
Brigadier General, because you've
like
mentioned everyone, if I may just jump in, you've mentioned everyone except the National Security Advisor.
Yes,
just a minute, Brigadier General.
Advisor, I'm more or less
I was going to ask you a very specific question, because there's a conversation
I
going
was talking
on
about the uniform wearing ones. Of course, that is grand strategic. And beyond that, also, there were other
Brigadier General, just a minute, just to ask you this question, because there's a conversation going on as to whether or not the person who occupies that office should have military experience or not. And I just wanted to get your thought on that, how relevant military experience is to that office.
We are talking, and that is why, we are talking about it the other day. And people fail to understand one thing. The position of National Security Advisor, as it were, it is not a commanding one, not commanding in the literary sense of the word. What I mean, in the military, like the Chief of Army Staff, he can command troops. He is an advisor. He is coordinator of security in the country, particularly those in the intelligence services. You talk about the National Intelligence Agency, the Defense Intelligence Agency. You look at the Director, Department of State Services, and the various intelligence services of the various services, the military, the police, and other, configuration that make up the security architecture. And that is what people fail to understand. So the President Commander-in-Chief reserved the rights and prerogative to appoint the person that he thinks that is competent and capable of, performing that task. Yeah, people definitely, before you can be able to perform that, definitely you must have, come a long way in the course of your career or even in life. And of course, it's cut across issues of diplomacy, liaison, and of course, you must be well grounded in the security sector. And if you look at the issue of security, even you see there is one thing that we have been missing in this country over time: the whole society approach to this security challenges that we are having. In most instances, we had this knee-jerk approach, coming with kinetic solutions to it, when in real sense of the word, it's supposed to be a combination of the two, kinetic and non-kinetic. So for an advisor, he will look at the whole landscape to see to what extent he will coordinate these activities and advise the president, appropriately.
Mm. And we remember, when the president was speaking, I think that I can't remember if that was, I think that was during his inauguration when he was given his charge, or the meeting with the service chiefs when he was given his charge to them. He did say that, look, or he called them, and said, look, advised that there should be interagency collaboration. And now that we have new service chiefs, how important is that call from the president?
Coincidentally, this morning, I was at the headquarters of 1 Division Nigerian Army, where I met with middle cadre officers, from the rank of captain up to that of a colonel. And the mantra, or what we were discussing, was the issue of interagency cooperation, collaboration, and coordination. And everybody was made to understand that you cannot do it alone. You need the support, you need the understanding, you need cooperation of other, members of the security architecture. Beyond them, in any conflict situation, there are other, key players, including stakeholders. For instance, most of the security challenges, particularly when the military is deployed in internal security operations, there are certain things that the military cannot do, but it is the responsibility of the police, or it could be even the road safety, or it could be the immigration, it could be, some other, even some non-governmental organizations, or even traditional institutions. And therefore, the issue of coordinating all these things, just like the National Security Strategy 2019 has made provision for, is very, very important. It is not just even coordinating the security agencies, but also to what extent are we integrating the average Nigerian in the quest for a lasting peace and security in this country. So these are the issues the National Security Advisor will be dealing with. So it is not just the intelligence community and all the rest, but other segments of the Nigerian society, to ensure that he has his fingers on top of everything and advise the president accordingly. Remember, we have an executive president whose everything stops on his box, so he takes the decision and he provides the grand strategic direction that these people that have been appointed will act upon. And they will bring their wealth of experience and knowledge to bear to what extent they can accomplish the mission or the directives given by Mr. President.
Fine place to leave it. Thank you so much for talking to us. The former Director of Army Public Relations, Brigadier General Sani Usman, retired. Of new service chiefs and IGP by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And to help us have this conversation further, let's bring in Dixon Osaji. He is a criminologist, a global security analyst, and an anti-terrorism specialist. He joins us virtually. Good to have you join us.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
Many have described these appointments as swift. What does that tell you about the president's posture towards addressing the security challenges in the country? And would you also say that it addresses the issue of ethnic balance?
Yes, I think it addresses the issue of ethnic balance. And first of all, I think I would like to appreciate him for such an excellent move. When he got into office, his first place of visitation was the Counter-Terrorism Center there in Abuja, and he told the service chiefs how they need to, he told the security agents how they need to, collaborate and do not hold information. So that tells you that President Bola Tinubu is ready to, bring Nigeria back to his glorious days, because we've suffered so much from the state of insecurity, banditry, terrorism. You can put it as multi-dimensional security threat. His appointment of the service chiefs this evening was a good one. The first time in history since 1999, during the emergence of democracy, we now have a national security advisor that is coming from a security background. I think it's a very good development, and we are hoping to see them, hit the board running and ensure that they protect the territorial integrity of this great nation. I wish to congratulate each and every one of them, and they must remember that Nigeria is bleeding. Nigeria has gone through a lot of pains. Our brothers and sisters are dying every day from the east, west, south, and north, attacks here and there. So what it needs to do now is to come to the drawing board, have an effective synergy, go into the criminal enterprise and bring them to book, and also ensure that we all will be able to move around without being intimidated by this unnecessary human being that are, threatening the territorial integrity of Nigeria.
Absolutely. I mean, you couldn't have said it, better. Many people will say, look, the agenda has already been set for them. When you look at what's happening around the country, even now, the attacks in Plateau State. What do you think that the roadmap should be?
Okay, the roadmap is all about discipline. Because sometimes it marvels me. For about 10, 12 years now, Nigeria has been going through a high state of insecurity. And we have the military who are supposed to hold the territorial integrity of this great nation. Oh, yes, they've done their best. They're trying their best every day. And now I think we have one or two fifth columnists. But I think the military has not, in exception of their sacrifices, which I appreciate and we all appreciate their sacrifice. The military has not really nipped this state of insecurity in the bud, because I see it sometimes as if maybe the military are just playing some friendly match with these guys. And we know the military, we know the capability of the Nigerian military. They've done it in Sierra Leone, they've done it in Liberia, they've done it in Congo, they've done it in Darfur, Sudan. Why can't they do it in their own home, Nigeria? I think the new service chief must go to these criminal locations and let them know that, hey, this time around is no time for business. And for the military to achieve this, first of all, the president must advise them on force protection. Because, as you can see, our soldiers and officers are being killed like chickens. These are guys that are made to protect the Nigerian people, being killed by these criminal elements. That is where force protection comes to play. So the new service chief must look at force protection and ensure that no officer and men that is trained so hard must be allowed to die cheap. Because as it stands, our officers and men are trained so hard and are dying so cheap, which is not acceptable. So this new service chief must let these criminals know that we are here to take back Nigeria from your hands, because we can't have a country where a democratic country where you have people, living their lives in the urban space, kidnapping our mothers, kidnapping our parents, kidnapping our brothers and sisters. It's a no. So I appreciate the president, and I think, with all honesty, he's going to perform very, very well, because he started on a very good note, and he must understand that the image of Nigeria is very essential. For us to, take ourselves to an international limelight, we must tell the world that we are ready to deal with the state of insecurity in Nigeria. And the President Bola Tinubu administration should be a no to insecurity and those that think they can bring the Nigerian state to its standstill.
And I guess going forward, all eyes will now be on the appointment of the Minister of Defense and Police Affairs to see how they complement these particular appointments. Thank you so much for talking to us, criminologist, global security analyst, and anti-terrorism specialist, Dixon Osachi.
Thank you for having me.